All right. Hey, friends. So even if you don't consider yourself to be a speaker, you probably are, right? Right?
Probably.
We're all
Yeah.
talking to people, right? So most of us talk to people a lot. So whether it's our coworkers, maybe that's in church, we lead in a small
Neighbors.
group, neighbors, our kids,
Yeah.
our families, like we all are communicating all the time, right? So we need, even if you don't consider yourself to be a public speaker, I think this episode is going to be really helpful for you. We have Christy Wright here, who is an awesome author, certified business coach, world-class professional speaker who's been doing this a long time. You might have heard of her because she worked over at Ramsey with Dave and all of his friends for a long time. But regardless, whether you're a business leader, content creator, anything you can think of, you are communicating in some way. So I think this episode is going to be really helpful. So with all that, Christy, thank you for taking a little time to come chat today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this. I'm honored.
Yeah. So we're going to have fun. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode because Christy agreed to do a little coaching for Linda and I. Because we don't do a whole lot of speaking, but we are communicating a lot, and this is something we want to grow in. And so we're going to let her pick apart something that we recorded probably about a year ago or something. Yeah. So it's about a 5-minute clip of when we gave the offering message at our church. Yeah. Lynn and I together sharing on this. And so Christy's going to help us dissect this, coach us, share about areas we can improve on it.
Better.
And help make us better.
That's what she's going to do. Right? Yeah. Help make all of us better, right?
Yeah. So y'all get to listen and watch us get the feedback on this and hopefully get to see us do better next time. So
which is so brave of you guys. Like I said before we started recording, y'all are so brave. I love this. I've never done this before and I'm so excited about it.
Yeah. Well, we haven't done this exact thing before. We've been coached on other things. So we're excited too. But I think it's gonna be really good. So with all that, let me share the screen, get this thing pulled up so we can kind of go through all that. So share video. Okay.
I love your commentary as we're
just in case you need to know what I'm doing on the screen. So Christy, I'll go ahead and hit play on this and then just let me know any point where you want to interject, give your feedback, thoughts, whatever else, and we'll kind of go from there. So this is our pastor introducing us.
You want to move that over here?
And we'll get going. All right. So
here we go.
And so, just a little context. Again, we're giving the offering message at our church. I'll leave it at that.
Would you welcome Bob and Linda Lotich as they come to share around our time of giving tonight? You wore them again. I'm so glad that you wore them again.
She did it for you.
Amazing.
Hi.
Morning, church. Or evening. It's evening, right? Good evening, church.
Hilarious. We are so excited to be here. Bob and I talk about money for a living. We teach people about money. And so we found something that has helped us that is super practical, but that has made giving so much fun. And we wanted to share it with you tonight.
Yeah, so I have to start by admitting that I used to hate giving. Super stingy, tight-fisted, just really did not like it at all. And that's why I want to share this, because this has helped me. And I'm in this position now where God has done so much in our heart, in our lives, in terms of generosity, where it's like, I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite things.
Okay, pause.
And so,
Okay. I want to pause before and I'll let it go a little bit longer next time, but there's several thoughts out of the gate that I want to share with you guys because this is really good. And I can get a lot from the first 30 seconds. So first of all, y'all are super comfortable on stage. That is very difficult to teach. That comes with practice. Some people naturally have it. And if they don't, they fake it really well, which actually leads to feeling that authentically. But your presence is so comfortable. You're not awkward. You're not doing anything weird with your hands. Your body posture is not awkward. Like that right there is a massive hurdle that you have overcome. So I just want to start by saying well done, because your immediate impression is so comfortable, which exudes confidence. So well done. You're both very comfortable on stage. I was nervous when you first told me that y'all were speaking together, because often two people speaking at the same time can be awkward because one person speaks too long. The other person's like, why am I here? Where do I look? What do I do with my eyes, my hands? Where do I stand? It's not like that at all. It may be different if you were doing an hour-long talk together and I would give you some advice on how to use the stage, but for 5 minutes, I think it's going to be fine. But initially y'all are handing off so naturally. You're handing off so well. one of the things I want to say, Linda, that you did really well is you got right into it. So when y'all said, hey, y'all, we're so excited to be here, a lot of people will camp there because they're nervous, and they'll just talk about how excited they are. And how about that football team Sunday and the weather, rain, man, you're just rambling. They just ramble because they're nervous. You got right into it. We teach people about money for a living. I was like, boom, I'm in. Great. Okay, great. I love that. You got right into it, which is what you should do. One of the things that you said, and I can't remember the exact words, which is why I wanted to pause because I may not say it correctly. But Bob, you say something to the effect of, I learned something that makes giving fun. I want to teach you how to make giving fun. I used to hate giving. I was really stingy. I didn't want to do that. Okay. The way that you talk about it, while that may be true, you talk about it in a way that is a little isolating. Where at this point in your talk, I want you connecting with your audience in a way that is so relatable where they're going, oh, me too. So I might have said something, if this were me, and you can use your own words, but I want to phrase it differently to say something like, I don't know about you guys, but giving can feel hard. Like you've got bills to pay. You want to give, like you're in your head, you want to give, in your heart, you want to give. But when it comes to writing that check, like it's hard. You've got practical needs you've got to meet. And the reality is, you don't see where it goes, do you? Like, you don't know. Is this helping like feed children in Africa? Is this putting the lights on? It's like, oh, I don't know. I really need to pay my child's tuition this month. It can be hard, can it? Okay. That's at really this point, I want you connecting with the audience on the problem that you have had, that they have, that giving is the solution to, because that's what you're driving towards, right? Like your solution is giving. So you're going to solve the problem of it's hard to give. I want you unpacking examples at this point of really relatable statements that gets the entire audience quickly going, that is hard. Yeah, that's me too. I feel the same way, Bob. Yeah. So when you say I was greedy and stingy, no one self-identifies as greedy and stingy. So they are not relating to you at that point. So it feels a little isolating, and it is not a great impression for you. So you can, I like how you got into the problem. I want to say that I like how you got into the problem of not wanting to give. I would phrase it in a way that's more relatable, and I would apply it to them specifically. Don't hope that they go, oh, me too. I want you to say, maybe you felt like that. You struggle, you got bills to pay. Like, I get it. Me too. We are in this together. You're connecting with them there on the problem so that they care about the solution you're about to offer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Cool.
So
Let's
good.
keep going.
All right.
We're going to start with 2 Corinthians 9:7, a verse you've probably heard, but we're going to read it and go from there.
Yeah, okay, so it says, each one must do just as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Okay, I've grown up in the church. I've heard this verse a lot, like a lot of times, right? Maybe you have too. But when I would hear this verse, honestly, I would feel pretty guilty about it. Because here's what would happen. The offering plate would come around and I'd go, I have some other stuff coming up this week and I know that bill is due. So I'm just going to wait and I'll see what's kind of left after that happens and see if I have enough to give. Or there'd be an opportunity to bless a person or send someone to conference, let's say, right? And I didn't have it. And so I would either just compulsively like, well, I'll just do it and I'll figure it out later. Or I would give it reluctantly, like, I don't know that I have this money to give, but I guess I'm just going to do it and hope it all works out. Or I wouldn't give it all because I just didn't feel like I had it to give. And none of these scenarios felt right to me. They all felt like against this verse. And so I would hear it and I would kind of cringe at my own self because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? How do I do this? Thanks for laughing. It's true. It really is true. Yeah. So I just felt like I was stuck between a rock and a hard place of how can I do this the right way?
Yeah. So here's what's so cool. So we just read 2 Corinthians 9:7. So it's Apostle Paul talking to the Corinthian church. He said you should do as you have decided in your heart to give, okay? So he had already written another letter to the Corinthians, right? 1 Corinthians. And he had told them, given them practical instruction on how to do it. Okay, so if you go to 1 Corinthians 16:2.
Okay, I love this because the scripture that you're using in this specific example highlights both the problem and the solution. And so what I would do if I were you is I would take that scripture, I would move it up a little bit earlier in the talk where Bob, like you could open with it, not open with it, but get into that when you're talking about the problem, get into this scripture. And one of the things that can be difficult in speaking, and this is true for any amount of time, by the way, is we want to highlight lots of solutions and lots of problems. I try to boil down what is the number one problem you're solving. And if I was going to put it in my own words of watching you all, it's hard to give. So that would be the problem you're solving. It's hard to give. Now, you could bounce back and forth, kind of volleyball this on the different ways that it's hard. So one way that it's hard is you got bills to pay, which Linda, you got into right after I said that. You got bills to pay. You got practical needs. Bob hops back over here and it's like, yeah. And it says you're supposed to be a cheerful giver. Honestly, I don't feel cheerful. I don't feel cheerful. Like, where's this money going? It's hard. Like, I want to feel cheerful, but I don't. How are you supposed to be cheerful? And then you go back to Linda. It's like, well, then sometimes you just don't give at all. And then you feel guilty because you're not giving or you're just making it, or maybe you're just giving an amount and you popcorn back and forth on all the ways that it's hard to give. But the umbrella is it's hard to give, because what you want to do is you want your problem statement, your problem that you're unpacking in this talk to be so simple and so easily stated that the audience remembers it. And then they are engaged for your solution. So the problem would be it's hard to give. And here's all the examples of how it's hard to give. And so that sets it up. Well, then you can use a bookend of this scripture, just like you did, Bob, there. Naturally, you guys are getting there. It's just a little bit of weaving. I would love it to be a more a straight line, because your audience can follow the story arc of where you're going. If it's a straight line, y'all are weaving a little bit, and all these things are really good. I would make it more streamlined. And so then you come back to a bookend of 2 Corinthians 9, which it says, do as you've decided. See, this was so great. Paul tells us, do in your heart as you've decided in your heart to do or give. Then you can pull it back in of, now here's the solution to that problem we just unpacked, that it's hard to give. God loves a cheerful giver, but we don't know how to be cheerful, etc. So you guys have really great elements in here. What I love to help people do, and this is what I teach in my talk template. I have a template where it's like, start to finish, it follows a story arc. And it's not, I would love to take credit for this, but this is the way that our brain processes information. If you follow Donald Miller's Story Brand or any movie you've ever seen, it follows a story arc. And that's because that's how our brain understands information. So it's problem, solution. In my talk template, I apply it to a talk versus a movie, but problem, solution, action. So the problem is it's hard to give. The solution is you do as you've decided in your heart to give. And then the action, which we'll get to, we're going to keep watching, is what do you do about that? How do you do as you've decided in your heart? Is it a plan? Is it a budget? Is it a set amount? Whatever. So let's keep watching. But I think you guys have really good elements. I would love to see it in a more streamlined format so that your audience is tracking with you and it doesn't feel like we're weaving around so much, if that makes sense. But this is really good. Keep watching.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I just want to add, literally everything you told me in that first little section, that's exactly what Linda did. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you nailed that.
I just did it right after.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying I didn't, but you did. Like you said, you naturally do this really, really well.
Oh, okay, good. I've watched a lot of movies, so.
Well, I'm not talking the story arc. I'm talking about your interpersonalness and applying it, bringing it back to everyday life. Whereas I was just,
yes.
Some people have this intuitively, and it's just how they naturally communicate. They're especially high relational people that are very relational. There's a lot of empathy. There's a lot of let's connect before I communicate. Let's connect on common ground. So for some people, it may come more naturally where you're doing it and you don't even realize it. Like you're saying, Bob, about Linda. The thing that I would say is the audience, because every human being is thinking, why do I care? All day, every day. Why do I care? Like, what are you about to say that interests me? This is how our brain is wired for survival. I'll give you an example. You're scrolling social media. When do you stop? When something answers that question for you. Here's what's in it for you. Here's a tip that interests you, news that interests you, something that makes you laugh, but it does something for you. And if it doesn't, you keep scrolling. And so our job as communicators is in the first few minutes to connect what we're about to say to why they should care. So we're answering the question they're thinking, which is what's in it for me? Why do I care? Which is why you're unpacking this problem. So if you would have flipped this and Linda comes out and she, very first words out of your mouth, y'all, we help people with money for a living. And let me tell you, giving is hard, isn't it? Like, you want to give. I know you do, but it's hard. You've got bills out of the gate. You're connecting with them on the problem that you're about to solve. So I would just move it up. Yeah, it's because it may be intuitive for you, but anybody can do it, which is why I teach this is like, this is the section of your talk. The first section is the problem. And most people, most communicators, speakers, business leaders, whatever, we come out and we just want to say what we want to say. You need a budget. You need to lose weight. You need to be a better. We just want to deliver the content, but no one cares about what you have to say until you connect with them on why they should care. And so we always start with the problem we're about to solve. And that's per podcast. That's per reel. I'll give you a great example. A reel I posted 2 days ago. I connect with them on, you're in this wilderness season and you feel like you need to let go of the past to take hold of the new, but you don't know what to let go of. You're like, yeah, Lord, I want to let go. What is it? What do I need to let go of? Everyone's going, right. Yes. When you get that head nod, when you get that yes, then they're ready for your solution, not before. And so I really love that you do that intuitively. And Bob, you made such a good point. So I would just move that part up out of the gate to get the audience scooched forward on their seat, listening for your solution because you've made them care.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's really good.
All right. Hitting play.
I'll give you my paraphrase version, which is basically, as money comes in, as you earn money, take some, set it aside. And one translation says, place it in safekeeping so that when it's time to give, the money's just sitting there waiting. Okay. And this is so powerful. Like, we thought, all right, how can we practically apply this? So we opened a separate account at our bank. And so when we get paid once a month, at the beginning of the month. Each year we decide what percentage we're going to give for that year. And so we've decided that. And then at the first of the week or the first of the month, we move that money out of our main checking account over to this other account. And it sits there until it's time to give. And then when it's offering time, we just make that transfer, move the money right over. And it's sitting there waiting to go.
Yeah.
And it's been a game changer for us because there's someone like me who hated giving because it was so painful. A lot of how you illustrated, this made it fun and it made us consistent.
Yeah, and it creates an atmosphere where you don't have to give under compulsion or reluctantly. Like, you just don't have to do that anymore. You can actually give cheerfully. But on top of that, it took us from, okay, well, we'll just give, like, Lord, okay, I hear you asking me to give. I'll try and figure this out, to, hey, where should I give this money, Lord? Where do you want it to go? Yeah. And when an opportunity comes up, you're like, I'm ready to be the hands and feet of Jesus. I'm ready. I can do it. Let's do it now.
Pause.
Yeah. And
you all seriously have all the right elements in the wrong order, but you have the right elements. So let's start with, like, you have the right elements. It's so good. I would take exactly what you guys just said in the last 60 seconds and I would flip it. Because Bob, you say that money is just sitting there. It's ready to go. It makes giving fun. That doesn't sound fun to me. Like, having money sitting in an account for church doesn't sound fun. It may sound something. It may sound easy. It may sound like I've planned, but it doesn't sound fun. So you've promised me that it's going to be fun and it's not actually fun yet. Okay. What Linda just said was fun. So Linda's like, where do you want to give, Lord? And then we could bless somebody and then we could give a big ta-da. Now I'm like, oh, that's fun. And then Bob goes, that's how giving becomes fun. Flip it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys have the right elements. They're just, and it may be just the dynamics of doing 2 people on stage, which, like I said, is challenging. You've got to be even more intentional of who's saying what, and you guys hand off so well. So it's very natural. There's no awkwardness. I think there's just things that are slightly out of order from a story arc and me tracking with you as an audience member. Yeah. Another thing that I would stay away from. Okay. So when we're speaking, 99% of the time, anyone that is speaking, by the way, you are trying to get the audience to do something, believe something, take an action, make a change. Like, you are trying to create a result. I don't care what business or industry, you're trying to create some result, even if it's just believing in themselves, increasing confidence, increasing prayer, whatever. We're trying to create a result. The way that we create action is through specifics and story, not through theory. So when you use words that are theory, no one is compelled to move. No one is compelled to get out their checkbook. And the words, I'm going to pick on you for a second, Linda, because you've done so many things well, you can handle it. When you say that creates an atmosphere where giving is no longer, creates an atmosphere doesn't make me want to get out my checkbook. If you were to tell me a story and you got into it, and it's like, so then one month, so we meet a woman at a gas station that, and her baby's there and her car's broken. Whatever, I'm making this up, but some story where you want to give. It's like, and y'all, that money was just sitting there. That money was just sitting there waiting for someone to bless. That our church has a new campaign where they're going to build a new and that money's just sitting there. You're tying back to what Bob has said that set you up. If it's just sitting there, now you're telling a story, a visceral, emotional story, a success story that I visually can now put myself in your shoes and go, wouldn't it be amazing the next time that someone crosses my coworker's child was diagnosed with cancer and I just want to bless them. Now I feel it. Now I want to get out my checkbook. But creates an atmosphere where giving is no longer reluctant. That's theory language. And we want to stay away from theory language because theory language doesn't cause action. So I would replace some of that hypothetical and the high level with one specific story. Now, if I can go on a quick sidebar here for your audience and for you guys. I think one of the temptations when we're communicators, one of the temptations is to be so general that because we want to apply everything to everyone. We want everyone to feel included. But when we're so general, we actually speak to no one. And so here's what pastors do all the time. I'm going to pick on pastors for a second because every single pastor does it every single Sunday. They get up. They're teaching on a sermon. Okay. They're teaching on a sermon and they are now at the part of their talk where they're going to apply it to the audience. And here's what they say. And I'm going to be real dramatic as I am just to make my point. Maybe you have financial struggles. Maybe you have marital struggles. Maybe you have parenting struggles. Maybe you have struggles with your career. Maybe you have health struggles. Maybe you have other struggles. Now, time out. You don't feel anything. Nothing about what I said connected with your heart and caused you to make a change. Nothing, because it is so vanilla. It is so general. It is so vague that no one actually feels anything. So in my effort to connect with everyone, I've connected with no one. I would rather you have 1 to 3. Now you're in a 5-minute talk. So you got time for one example here. In a sermon, you got time for 3. But I'd rather you have 3 specific 1-sentence examples than 10 general that don't speak to anybody. So here's what that might look like. Maybe you and your spouse are so disconnected, you don't even remember why you got married. And you go to bed every night. And there's more and more space between you. And you don't speak and you don't connect. And you realize you are living with a stranger in your own home. And you don't know if you could ever get back to how you were. Maybe for you, you have been working so hard for so long, you don't believe you'll ever get ahead. You get paid every Friday, that money is gone. Any hopes or dreams of a vacation or ever even digging yourself out of that hole of debt are gone. And you just have resolved that this is your story and this is as good as it gets. And you're just going to do what you can to get by because you're never, ever going to have margin again. Maybe for you, that's what money represents to you, right? Like, do you feel the difference?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Specific, visceral examples that make people feel something. So here, what I would love to see replace the creates an atmosphere, theoretical, kind of high level, general language that we want to get away from and take one specific example of one specific time that you guys got to bless someone because you had that money sitting there. And then when you tell that story, Linda, then it goes to Bob and Bob goes, that's how giving becomes fun, y'all.
Yeah.
Boom. Now you've shown me how it's fun. And then Bob now has permission to say it is fun because you've shown me that it's possible. The one other thing I would say is if you are giving this talk, and this would be true for anyone, if you're giving this talk as a testimony, then using we language the whole time would be appropriate because it's a testimony. But if you were standing there as thought leaders that are instructing the audience to give, I would save the we language for the first half of the talk, the first beginning, when you're getting in with, we used to struggle with giving too. By this point, I want you to be the authority and say, this is how you set it aside. You transfer the money. You do this. You do, like, you're instructing them on what to do, because at this point, you're still talking about, well, we would allocate this money. We. I don't feel bossed around enough. If you want me to change my money habits with giving, Linda and Bob, you got to tell me what to do. So here's what I want you to do. You're probably thinking by this point, that would be nice to do like you guys have done. I want to do what Paul's saying. How do I do it? Let me tell you how. You set up a savings account. You have an automatic withdrawal of the percentage that you want to give from your bank. And then that money is just sitting there. This is exactly what we did. And you can too. But directives, just like you would with your kids, directives. I want you to put your shoes on and brush your teeth. I want you to open a bank account and transfer the money. It's not condescending. It's actually incredibly helpful because people are tired and distracted. They don't know how to apply your content. And when you're still telling the we story this late in the talk, they're a little too sitting back and checked out. They need you to tell them what you want them to do if you want them to change their habits. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's really good. I've never thought of it that way. I've never thought of Yeah, that makes so much sense. Like starting with the we side and then transitioning
Until we
to
connect.
Well,
Then
let me
transitioning.
let me show
Yeah.
you a contrast. So the outline of my life balance book and the outline of my life balance talk, because they mirror each other on Take Back Your Time. This is the thesis. Okay. So the problem, we don't know what life balance is, much less how to achieve it. The solution, life balance is living from your values. And I've got all kinds of stories throughout. The action, which is how you apply the content, how you actually apply the solution that you've highlighted. Figure out what matters, stop doing what doesn't matter, create a calendar that reflects what matters, protect what matters, and be present for what matters. So I'm telling stories in the beginning about being out of balance, and we don't know what it is. And it feels like I'm always losing, and I'm weighed down by guilt. No matter what I do, I always feel like I'm failing. That's me and we and us. And isn't that hard? I apply it to you. Isn't it frustrating? We never have enough time. Me and we in the beginning of the talk. When I get to the solution, which is my thesis, that is one main idea, and I am directive at that point. Life balance is living from your values. Life balance is spending your one life on what is important to you. It is not, I think it's living from my values. I'm giving you the option to opt out and go, it's not true for you. No. This is the absolute truth. And here's how you do this. Number one, figure out what matters. Not, I figured out what mattered and then I stopped doing what didn't matter. And then I created a calendar. At this point, it's not authoritative enough if at the end I'm just telling my story. And so you've got to switch to the authority figure that says, here is the thesis content, and here are your steps to do this thesis thing. Those directives. It's actually very helpful to your audience because it gives them handlebars, notes. They know what they need to do to go do that thing when they walk out of the room. So I've actually never taught that before, like so explicitly, but seeing it, it's just really interesting. It's really, really important that you make that switch. So thanks for helping me realize it's a part of it. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm realizing in that beginning communication establishes the authority for that second half.
Absolutely.
And
The
anyway,
empathy,
go ahead.
The empathy, the relatability, the I've been there. But now at this point, you're saying, this is what you do to change or to get out of it or to do things differently. You're no longer in that same boat with them. I mean, you can use examples of like, well, here's how you use examples, but your directives have to be directive. They have to be, this is what you do.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying, when I was watching you as the consumer, which this is my first time seeing it, and I want my real responses. When you said, we changed the blank account, we moved the money over, everything in my posture sits back a little, like, because this is story time. It's like, oh, okay, that's what y'all did. Well, good for y'all. Okay, well, cool. Anyway, I'm going back to doing what I did because it's an option. It's if you're just telling me what you did, then there's an option to not do what you did. You change the statement so that this is what you do this, et cetera. And then I don't have the option. I mean, obviously we do, but in your communication for persuasion, for influence, to lead to the result we're talking about, the directives are much more effective.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Another minute or so.
It is so much fun because when you see yourself partnering with God, like this is where the adventure in Christianity comes from, is being ready to say yes, right? Like you see yourself doing all these crazy things for God, but if you do not have the finances to do it, it makes it really challenging. So when you set aside this money and say yes to the Lord in that way, it's super practical, but it sets you up for really fun adventures.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's been a game changer for us. So if this is something that you need, tap into Paul's wisdom here. 1 Corinthians 16:2. Go read it, tap into this. He's onto something, and it's helped us immensely. So with that, let's pray. God, I pray that you bless this offering tonight. Bless all the generous givers. Bless the, just make this thing grow, Father. I'm believing for the supernatural abundance, the over and above. I'm believing for the expansion that as the money comes in, that you multiply it, its effectiveness. The Ephesians 3:20 thing, God, where it goes so much further. So any dollar that's given here goes so much further than we can expect. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay. This is so great. Okay. A couple more thoughts and then we'll just take this any direction y'all want to take it. Okay. You said, Linda, I think you said it sets you up for really fun adventures. I love the words that y'all are using in connection with giving. Fun, adventure. I love that. again, what's going to paint that picture is a story. So just having a story that highlights the fun and adventure is going to be really, really important. Linda, I wouldn't have your phone in your hand. It's super distracting. So just if it's a 5-minute talk, try to memorize the section or you the confidence monitor or something else. Because when you're using your hands, which you should, I do, it makes for more better stage presence. Your phone is waving. And so the whole time I'm looking at your phone. And then the one thing that you ought to just think through, and again, you have to keep in mind that anytime we teach, whether we're teaching them to give, how to give, we're teaching them about weight loss, teaching them about finances, teaching them how to build a business, it doesn't matter. When you're teaching someone something new, you have to remember that they don't know this. And what is obvious to you is not obvious to them. What is easy for you is not easy for them. And so we can often breeze past stuff. So what comes to mind for me is you have now taught them in this 5 minutes to set aside the money. But they haven't done that right now. They're in church. So what do they do today? How do you connect what you just said to what you want them to do right now? So right now, what would it look like for you to give 10% of your last paycheck? And then from here on out, when you go home, you set aside that money. Because you've taught them a budgeting concept that they're not doing right there in the seats. And that isn't necessarily connected to giving right then. Now, maybe you'll see great giving the next week and hopefully that they do it. But you want there to be a very direct line between the problem you set up to the solution you teach them to the action you're telling them to take. And as we've said it today, is the problem is it's hard to give. The solution is setting the money aside. And the action is give today. Those are not connected. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Totally.
So if we want them to give today, then we need to have a problem that sets up why it's hard to give, the solution of how you can give today and trust God or whatever. Or you need to have, it's like this. Does that make sense? So we need to have a very clear, the problem is we don't know what life balance is. The solution is life balance is this. The action is here's 5 steps to achieve that life balance. So in your, it's hard to give. Giving is easy when, or whatever your solution is. And then the action is give today and then go home and plan, or, step 1, give 10% today. Step 2, go home and set your budget. Step 3, something where you're applying what you want them to do today, because you're making the ask for them to give today. You're not doing a talk on how to budget today. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's good.
So I mean, I don't, because I think you were the one that said give today, possibly. And I'm just thinking through, maybe I didn't do this in this talk, but I have definitely done it before, where like exactly what you're saying, where it's like, I just made 2 separate points that we're not connecting while I'm communicating. And I think some of that comes out of nervousness. And I'm glad you didn't think I looked nervous, but I remember being nervous. And so, just how do you, is this just something that comes with time and, a lot of practice and, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'll tell you my theory, Linda, and you can tell me if this is your experience or not. Okay. So here's my theory. I have a course called Stop Winging It. And midway through the course, I ask my students, so it's a 6-week course. About 4 weeks into the course, I ask my students, what are some of their main pain points and some of their problems, fears around speaking, nervousness, whatever. The number one overwhelming response of the biggest barrier between them and speaking is nerves. It's confidence. I don't have enough confidence. Okay. Here's my theory. My theory is it's actually not confidence. My theory is it's content, that you don't know what you're trying to say. And if you knew what you were trying to say, your confidence would be through the roof. If you knew I start here and then I go here and then I go here and then I end here, you would not have the phone and you wouldn't have the nerves. And it's not about memorization. It's about a story arc. It's about having such a clear path for your message that there is no wandering, rambling. There's no sidebars. It is a very clear path. And what's so great is when you write your talk, and it could be a 5-minute talk, it could be a 60-second reel, it could be an hour keynote. When you write your talk with this very clear story arc, then you're not even worried about memorization, because all you really need to know are your 3 main chunks. And so what would come next in your talk is what would naturally come next in a story. So you come out of the gate. I'm going to make this up as if I was doing this 5-minute talk. Come out of the gate. I'm going to start with story. We always start with story. Start with a story of a time that it was hard to give. Well, that sets up the problem of it's hard to give. So now we're all going to talk about how it's hard to give. It's hard, isn't it? You got bills, you, me, all of us, it's hard. What's great is we just need a system. a system makes it easy to give. It's hard because we don't know what we're doing. It's hard because we're making it up every day. It's hard because we're just waiting for money to be left over. Money's never, just put a system in place like you do when you come home and you got a place you put your keys. You just need a system. That's all. When you have a system, you know what happens? You already know where the money is because it went to this place it was supposed to go. So you unpack this thesis of you need a system. I'm making this up, but you unpack it, you sell them on it, right? To where they're all going, oh yeah, I've got a system for my keys. Oh yeah. It's like, yeah, why would I not have a system for this? I got a system for showering in the morning. You just need a system. Oh no, okay. Well, here's how you do that. Step 1, you're going to open a separate savings account. Step 2, set up auto draft of your paycheck or your business revenue that's going to automatically go into the savings account. And then step 3, on Sunday, like today, you write that check, friend, because that money's just sitting there. Let me tell you a story about XYZ story of a success story of how I was able to do this. That's how you do it. So you know what? You don't have a system today. I get that. What would it look like for you to go in and give what you would like to give? 10%, not just when it's easy, but 10% of your paycheck, write that. And then you go home and you set up that system. It's a very clear path. I just made that up on the fly, but it's a story arc it's hard to give. The solution is you need a system. Here's your 3 steps to a system. So I think that if you had a clear path for your content, this could be y'all together or y'all separately, I think your confidence would go through the roof because you'd know exactly where you're going. We get nervous when we're not sure what we're saying. And this is me too. When I'm not prepared or I haven't fleshed out my content or I haven't reviewed it, I ramble. I talk about things that don't make sense. I do things out of order. It's just not as good because I don't know where I'm going. So my theory is it's not confidence, it's actually content. And if you write the talk in a story arc of problem, solution, action, you know exactly where you're going, I think you'd be a lot more confident.
I think that's good. That's really good.
That is really good.
I mean, I've had experiences. I used to lead worship and 100% could not agree more. My confidence was directly tied to how well I knew the song. It was a brand new song. And I'm trying to remember the chords and trying to remember the lyrics. It just made it very unenjoyable. But if I knew it like the back of my hand, it was like, oh, this is easy. So,
well, you have more fun and you do better when you're confident, especially in anything on stage. You just do better. You're gonna shrink back when you're insecure. You're gonna ramble, be nervous. You're gonna talk softer. You're almost gonna try to like subconsciously hide yourself, even though you're in the spotlight and the one behind the microphone.
Which makes it worse, doesn't it?
Terrible. It makes it terrible. It makes it awful. So the confidence piece of it makes you do better, which, and this is what it all comes down to, makes the audience be able to receive it. It leads to life change. So, and I think especially in the church world, because I know we have a lot of believers listening to this, there is a belief, there's a myth, I'm going to call it a lie, that if you practice or prepare or script or plan your stories, you're not following the Holy Spirit's lead. And I think that is just absolute garbage because the worship band, they didn't just get up there and hope that Oceans came out perfectly. They prepared because they care. And when you, as a communicator, prepare, it shows that you care. So let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to practice that joke in front of my mirror 5 times to make sure I land that punchline, because that laugh that I get from you is going to enable you to hear that tough love I'm going to say next and that hard truth that you need to hear about obedience, which is going to lead to you then obeying the Lord. And the next time he prompts you to do something or test you or put you through, I'm going to practice. I'm going to prepare, because I care about the outcome. And so I just want to set people free, especially in the church world, that feel like, oh, it's not authentic if I prepare. Yeah, speaking is a skill like anything else. And the worship band is preparing. You should prepare if you care. Yeah, that's good.
I love that.
It's a good word.
Yeah. Okay. One more. I have a selfish question, if that's okay.
I'm ready for it.
I want to know, because we are about to give an hour-long talk tonight, actually.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
But there are sometimes, so we have like a 6-week course that we do. And there are some times when we do this in person where it's real Bob heavy and I'm just sitting there.
Okay.
And I'm doing my best to just like pay attention to him, nod along. Do you have any, just tips?
Y'all are teaching this together. It's 60 minutes.
Yes.
You're teaching it together. Okay. Give me rough time frames of like, how long is Bob speaking without you speaking or vice versa?
It varies, but there are bigger chunks. Like in one of them, I have said, I'm just going to sit down and let you do this by yourself, because I think it's so much more awkward for me to stand there for 30 minutes.
Absolutely. You need to get out of the light. You need to get out of the stage and out of the light. Now you can be on stage if you're going to be called on, but if it's 30 minutes, you need to be off stage.
Right.
You need to excuse yourself. Like Bob should say, okay, hey, Bob comes out, Bob kicks it off. You don't even come out until it's your turn. Unless you're doing something in the beginning, it is Bob. It is the Bob show for 30 minutes. And then Bob says, and now I'd like to bring out my wife, Linda, and she's going to, we're going to talk about this together, or she's going to take it, whatever the next section. I would say if you are not speaking for 5 minutes or more, I'm making this up on the spot right now. Okay. But it feels good. 5 minutes or more. You need to be backstage, out of the light, off to the side.
Yeah.
If it's longer than, if you're going to come right back after 5 minutes, that's one thing. But 30 minutes, you're not even on. He's just going to reintroduce you. That's a whole session. Bob, you're doing a whole keynote by yourself. And then she's coming out for a shared keynote, like in your mind, because here you have to think of the visual. This visual of you all side by side is very confusing to the audience. This visual, but only one speaker, the audience is like,
what do I do?
She's there, but I don't. It's diluting and distracting from your message, Bob, having a person present that is not doing anything. So I would, if you're speaking and it's a back and forth, you're both there. If it's a good long time, like 5 minutes or more where you're not speaking, then you move out of the way. You're visually showing the audience, pay attention to Bob. And then when you're ready to come back, then you come back. It's kind of like when I throw to a video, if I'm speaking and I'm like, okay, check out this video, I move back off stage. I'm on stage, but I move to the back of the stage and out of the light because I want them to watch the video. If I'm in the front, they're like, do I look at you or the video? I don't know. Yeah. Your visuals tell them something and they teach them who to pay attention to. So I would use that rough timeline where if it's 5 minutes, just scooch out of the way for a little bit and then come back. And then what if it's 30 minutes, you're off.
What if it's 5 minutes or less?
Yeah, less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Then you can be there, but you would handle it like you handle a media interview. So like if I'm on, if we were doing a media interview right now, where is the news and you are introducing me and it's a long intro where you're talking about what happened in, your city that night. I'm sitting there like this. You're nodding along like you're a audience participant.
Part of
You're smiling and you're like, oh, good point. Yeah. Like you're not just like staring off into outer space. You know what I mean? Because again, your visual, what I would do is if it's less than 5 minutes, I would find a way to pull you into the conversation where it's not just Bob teaching. So if it's 5 minutes less, and if you're going to be there, you need to be interacting. It's like you said the other day, Linda, like da-da-da. Yeah, exactly. Da-da-da. One sentence. Okay, great. Now it's back. Just pull you into, make it more of a dialogue. If you're up front, I would make it a dialogue. And if it's not a dialogue, then you're out of shot. Does that make sense?
That's great.
All right.
That's good.
This is so helpful.
Y'all got some staging to do before tonight.
Because he's like, no, I want you to stay there. It helps me. And I'm like, it's too weird for
Bob,
me to stay
there. Selfish. Bob, that's not your security blanket. No.
We need to give, since
y'all are so sorry you asked me for feedback on your show.
No, let's give a little bit more context here. So the context is not that she would go 30 minutes without talking, but that she would interject throughout. Because she is really good at that. Honestly, a lot of her podcasts.
That's a totally different story.
Like I'm the producer.
Where it's like 30 minutes of him being like, I'm doing this. Then I have to find ways to interject.
Hey, we don't need to.
Okay. If the goal is for both of you to speak, then absolutely both of you be up there. But you need to figure out what that interaction looks like, because what y'all did on stage for the offering was beautiful. It was so natural. It was back and forth. It was effortless. There was nothing awkward about it. You didn't have to butt in, Linda, and there was no awkward silences when there was a handoff. You both have the ability to do that. So I would just translate that skill to this hour keynote tonight, and you guys get on the same page of, are we doing this together or are we doing it separate? If it's separate, Linda, you're out of shot. If it's together, then figure out what that dynamic is. Now, let me say this. This actually takes work. There's nothing wrong with you guys that you don't have it figured out. When we would do like massive smart conferences and like Dave would be out there, or like I would be out there and I just finished my keynote, and then Dave would come meet me and we would talk back and forth about my new book. And then I would leave and then he would pitch the book and pitch like all of that was practiced. You block it. He'd say, okay, so you say, thank you so much for having me. You get your applause, stay there. While they're clapping, I'm going to walk out. I'm going to stand next to you. When they're done clapping, then I'm going to say, so Christy, you have a new book coming out. And then we're going to go, I'm going to ask you about the book. You're going to talk about the book. And then I'm going to say, y'all give her another round. They're going to give you another round. While they're clapping, you leave. And then I'm going to pitch the book and the signing and you go out. all of that was staged. And I don't mean
Wow.
staged like fake, it was planned. So if you're going to do a talk with another person, plan it. Plan who's talking, when is it back and forth? She should not have to butt in because that would be awkward. But you guys plan, and if you want her to interject, then you turn. Here's what's key. Again, it's visuals. Bob, if you want her in the conversation, then what you're going to do is you're saying something, you're going to turn your body towards her and go, right, Linda? And that is her cue to go, right. And then she jumps in with what she'd like to say. You're going to hand it to her. And then she's going to give her soundbite, her 2 sentences or 2 minutes, whatever you guys decide. And then she's going to turn back to you and go, exactly. And then her body is telling you it's yours. And you're going, and back to you. It's an unconscious, it's a unspoken way to communicate that we are doing this together, because just hoping it happens is not a good plan and could lead to awkward moments for the audience. And also putting either of you in the position of having to butt in on either one is not a good position, because it's rude and it's awkward. So yeah, plan it. That's a short answer. Plan it. Just plan it all through. You can talk through the whole talk before tonight. And I don't mean do the whole thing live. I mean, just talk through it, like this section. Okay. And then I'll throw it to you. Okay. Write your name in, Linda. Linda comes in here. Okay. And then I'll do this. Okay. And then throw it to you. Just adapt your notes to where now you know who's coming in when.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, this has been super helpful. I'm super excited about it. So for anyone who wants to, again, at this point is excited, like, yes, I need to improve and grow in this area. You have this awesome...
like I'm never having you back on the show.
No, wants to go deeper and wants more of your help. You know, so one of your PDFs I've downloaded is top 10 mistakes that all speakers make. Everybody should run out and get this. And this is at christywright.com/speaking, correct? Yeah. Okay. And then you have other free PDFs on there that they can get as well.
Yes.
Right. One of them was one of them about the story arc. Remember in there?
I have a speaking business starter kit, which is a bunch of templates to help people start their speaking business or get booked as a speaker. I have the top 10 mistakes all speakers make, and how to avoid them, which is important. And so those are the 2 main ones. And then I have a content clarity starter kit if you're not sure about what your content is, to help you identify what your content is. But,
but you also have a course teaching this as well, right? So do you want to share anything about that before we wrap up?
Sure. The course is not open right now. It's called Stop Winging It: How to Face Your Fear, Craft Your Message, and Present Like a Pro. But I also do coaching. And then the other course, Start Getting Booked: How to Get Booked and Paid as a Speaker, is open right now. And so you can get in that any time of the year. But Stop Winging It only opens twice a year. So we opened about a month ago. So yeah.
Okay,
but you can find out all this at christywright.com.
Okay. But if you get the PDFs, you'll be on your email list. You'll be able to hear when it's open, right?
That's right.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate all this. We took notes. I'm going to go back and watch it again. We're going to rework this 5 minutes. And I can't wait to do it again.
Y'all are seriously so good. The things that you can't teach, like having a comfort level on stage, having a really great interaction, 2 people is hard, and y'all do it very, very well. And so I just want to say y'all have all the right pieces. If y'all rearrange a couple things, it'll be that much more impactful, because people can track with you, but y'all have so many things going right. So thanks for asking me to do that. That was really fun.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it, Christy. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.